standing and honoring America by saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Leahy.
Here.
Mr. Leary.
Here.
Ms. Martin.
Here.
Mayor Caulfield.
Here.
Mr. Conway.
Here.
Ms. Doherty.
Here.
Ms. Faticante.
Here.
7 present.
I called the Senate this morning, and I talked to Senator Panagiotakis' office, and I spoke to members of the House Ways and Means, and I asked Manager Lynch to also come to this meeting with our Chief Financial Officer, Tom Moses, to discuss and present this overall budget, because I think people have different views and mixed emotions about this issue. And I want to assure everyone, the mayor and the school committee, do not relish what's before us. We don't. But communities like New Bedford, Springfield, Holyoke, Lawrence, Worcester, urban cities like Lowell are going through the same thing, some of them worse than what we're going through. It's not going to be easy for us, but we have to have a balanced budget on July 1st. And now I'd like to present to you Manager Bernie Lynch, City Manager of Lowell. He has the facts, the figures. Everyone in attendance has those facts and figures, I believe, and the school committee does. Mr. Manager and Tom Moses will address not only everyone in attendance here, but the viewers at home. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have handouts that we've given to the school committee members and the staff that's here. We also have some other copies. I don't think we have enough for everyone, but we'll be happy to hand out the documents that we have provided to the committee to help out for those here in attendance to understand all the numbers we'll be using. Essentially, what I've done is I've given out 2 documents to the committee, and if I could just briefly go over those. I guess the issue that has been put to me by you, Mr. Mayor, as well as members of the committee in talking about the city budget and the finances of the city as we go into fiscal year 2010. So, you know, what kind of shape is the city in, and what is the extent of the issues that we're facing? I don't think there's anyone that doesn't realize that these are very challenging financial times for cities and towns across the Commonwealth and far beyond. The other challenging issue that we've encountered this year that's a little bit different than prior years because of the economy and what's happening with state government is that the numbers we've been working off of as we go through this process have changed almost from day to day. We're now basically on our 6th version of the state budget that impacts how much money we can allocate to the various functions of the city, including the school department. The first sheet I'd like to use as a means of communicating this is a 7-column sheet entitled 2009 to 2010 General Fund Budget. And you can see the first column there presents the revenues and expenditures for the city for fiscal year 2009, the year that we are currently in. This is essentially a format that I used as I traveled around the city over the last few months, meeting with neighborhood groups, business groups, nonprofits, to talk about the challenges we face in terms of the lack of revenue, but also in terms of the fixed cost nature of our budget. We don't have a lot of control over our budget. When you look at the city of Lowell for fiscal year 2009, we're talking $291 million in general fund expenditures and general fund revenues. And nearly 220 of that is what I would consider to be very much fixed cost. that we don't have a lot of choices. We don't have a lot of options, either because of prior decisions that have been made, state laws, and I guess that's the thrust of it. So for fiscal year 2009, you may know that we did encounter a $3 million cut back in January that the governor put forward as a means to balance the state budget. We were able to close that by savings that we had in city government by not filling a number of positions in city government, putting controls on our expenses. We had some savings in our debt service because of the way we structured some of our financing this year for capital projects, as well as improved interest rates as a result of the better bond rating that we received. And we did go to the school committee, and we said, because of this $3 million hit to the city budget, which includes the school department, we asked you to absorb $600,000. And the means that we came to that number were essentially that the school department represents about 20% of our revenues that we receive. So $600,000 was absorbed, and we certainly appreciate that. Looking forward into fiscal year 2010, and I'm not going to go through every bit of detail on this sheet, but you can see some of the challenges that I say we're facing. But you can see that things have changed dramatically over time. Our initial estimate for 2010 showed that we would have almost a $13 million budgetary shortfall based upon what we saw as revenues coming in from state government, the property taxes that we receive, and then working off of the various fixed costs and semi-fixed costs we had and some of the discretionary or locally controlled spending. When the governor released his budget back in January, we were able to improve that a little bit. The governor came forward with about $1 million more for us, and it dropped to about a $12 million problem. The House came out in April with its budget, and given the fact that the city receives so much money from the state, any changes that are made in terms of local aid have a very dramatic impact upon the city budget. And when the House Ways and Means budget came out in April, that budget shortfall grew to just under $18 million. When the House did their final budget in late April, they were able to come forward with additional money, and the budget shortfall dropped back down to the $12 million range. Followed closely by the Senate Ways and Means Committee. After the Senate saw some new revenue numbers for the state, the budget shortfall for the city grew to just over $19 million. Now, I'm going to stop there for a second to note the fact that these budget numbers that we have for expenditures on the city, the non-school side, we have included what we see as the cost increases that we're anticipating with any wage increases or utility costs that are going up. We have not worked into these numbers the costs that we know that the school department's looking at for similar types of costs. So when we say a $19 million problem for the city as a whole, I recognize that the school department, because it has contractual conditions already built in with its collective bargaining units, it has energy costs that are going up, it has other costs that they have to work in. The real problem for the city of Lowell far exceeds $19 million. If we work in the numbers that you have, that number goes well into the 20s, the $20 million problem that we have to grapple with. So just last week, the Senate took up the budget. They looked at the Ways and Means recommendation, and they were able to come forward with about $1 million more for the city. And that came in the form of general municipal aid. It did not come in the form of Chapter 70 or any type of education aid. It came in just general municipal aid. And also some money for the Quinn bill, a very small amount for the police educational incentive program. So we're facing right now, assuming that we're level funding the school in terms of the local contribution, and assuming the Chapter 70 is reduced down to the $117 million that you see on this sheet and that you'll see in the cherry sheets, we're looking at about just under $18 million, $17,950,000 that we're facing and that we're having to deal with. So the issue that was put to me specifically was what has happened to the cherry sheet. And I know that there have been a couple of numbers bandied about, and so let me just go to the next sheet here, which gives you a sense of what the cherry sheet has done. For those of you here that aren't familiar with the cherry sheet, it's a term that goes back a number of years now to back, I believe, into the 1970s when the state issued their local aid numbers that came out in cherry-colored pieces of paper. No longer do they do that. It's all processed now over the internet, with the web, where we're able to get these. But they basically have 2 pages. There's a one page that gives you the receipts of what's coming to the city from the various state aid accounts, and then what's often ignored is the second page, and that's the assessments. On top of giving us money, the state takes money away from us. So you really have to look at the net effect. You can't just look at the revenue coming in. Page 1 of the sheet I gave you has the total estimated receipts, and this was the Senate Ways and Means budget. This version has the city receiving $139 million in state aid. And I know that's a number that was out there floating around. You'll look on page 2 on the assessments or the charges that the state sends on to us. It's just under $12 million. So the actual net local aid that the city is receiving from the Senate Ways and Means budget proposal, which I ran through a second ago and looking at the overall budget, we're looking at about $127.5 million net local aid that we'll be receiving after they take off the charges. Late last week, when the Senate issued their budget, we received another cherry sheet, this time with the Senate's final budget proposal. And if you look at the estimated receipts at the bottom of that page, which is page 3 of your handout, you can see that estimated receipts went from that $139 million number that you saw in the first, or the Senate Ways and Means version, up to $142 million, an apparent increase of $3 million. And I know that my understanding is that some people had seen this or heard about these numbers and thought that suddenly the city had another $3 million. Again, the devil's in the details. You have to look at the 4th page, which apparently is missing. Do you have a copy? Someone have a copy of the 4th page? I came back and found this pile of paper, so I apologize. But the total estimated charges that we are receiving under this new budget proposal are just under $14 million, $13.7 million. So if you take that off of the 142, you can see that we only picked up about $1 million, as I described. So that's the difference between those 2 cherry sheet accounts or cherry sheets that we received. I guess the last question that I was asked about is how did we get to the $5 million reduction in the school budget? And essentially that $5 million, and that $5 million is not off of the local share. It's not off of the $18 million. The $5 million is off of the total school budget from last year. So last year your budget was $137.9 million, I believe it was. This $5 million is off of that to bring you down to the 132, to bring it down to about 132 million and some additional funds there. Okay, and the way that that is arrived at is the loss of school aid, the Chapter 70 and other accounts that have been reduced by the state. That's just under $3.2 million. That's $3,157,295. Using the same formula that we used for the dealing with the 9C cuts of the 20%. 20% of the loss of general aid that the city has received is just under $2.4 million. We do give you a credit for 20% of the tax increase that we see coming in this year, which is $842,000. 20% of the local receipts increase, which is $52,000. and 20% off of a loss of the one-time funds that are gone. And that's a loss of $280,000. So the first two numbers were negatives. The next two, the tax increase and the local receipts, were positives, and the last was a decrease of $280,000, which brings us just under $5 million.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Tom Moses, if you would have anything to add to that. Mr. Manager, what the bottom line is, we're looking at a deficit of $16,296,183. Is that in the ballpark?
It's when you're talking
You said we picked up $1 million. So
we picked up $1 million
that brings
in
the budget to
right.
$140,519,422. And if you deduct that from last year's local aid of $156,815,605, my figures show $16,296,000.
Right, but I think the mayor is speaking specifically of the decrease in state aid, not the total deficit, but the decrease in state aid. It's approximately that.
Right.
Yes.
So
I didn't count that. I didn't add those numbers up.
even with the changes in local aid that the Senate has furnished us with, we are still looking at a deficit in the vicinity of $17 million.
Exactly.
Which is absolutely not an easy nut to crack. And,
Exactly.
Tom, you have anything to offer? Mr. Manager, I want to thank you for being here and explaining the budget to everyone in attendance, and the school committee, the superintendent, and thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
Your Honor, through you to the city manager, I'd like to thank you as well for being here tonight. And my question to you is, you said the way you got the $5 million was to include the $2 million deficit from the Chapter 70 aid that has been reduced $2 million. My understanding was that the state is going to use federal stimulus money so that we could count on a level-funded state aid number. So my question to you is, if that does happen, does that mean that $2 million then gets given back to the schools? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The federal money that's coming in is actually outside of the state cherry sheet. It comes directly to the school off budget. So in fact, the instructions are to take some expenses that you would otherwise budget for inside of your budget and move them outside and match up with
Excuse
the
me, if I
cities.
could clarify, I'm not speaking about that federal stimulus money. We have that figured in. I believe the number is $4.7 million for the current budget we're working on for 010. My question is regarding the backfill of additional federal stimulus money that is supposed to be used so that our Chapter 70 is level funded. That's what I've been hearing from the state, that was going to happen.
We haven't received any official word on that. We'll review that and look at that as it comes in. I haven't received anything to that effect.
Madam Superintendent, would you like to comment?
Just point of clarification. So the $2 million that school committee member Doherty is referring to, has that been taken out of the budget, and is that to be replaced with the over $2 million that we're getting from the governor, or is that a different $2 million?
Again, there's all these moving parts. The $2 million that the governor is proposing, again, I haven't seen any directives on that yet. When we see that, we'll...
We haven't either. That's why I was just wondering if you had, and if that was the same $2 million.
No, we haven't. I haven't seen that yet.
And isn't that stimulus money, Madam Superintendent, doesn't have to be directed to Title I and special education?
There's 3 different stimulus packages coming to the school department. One of it is Title I, one of it is IDEA money, which is special education, and one is from the governor's office, which the original proposal was something like 2.4, 2.6, and there was some controversy over other towns and cities who weren't receiving any of that pot of money, and that if in fact it was distributed throughout the Commonwealth to the over 350 cities and towns, that would be reduced to $700,000 for the city of Lowell. And I just haven't heard an update on that, and I was just wondering if, Jackie, you were referring to that $2 million.
Right. That was my understanding, too. The governor's proposal, some couple months ago now, was that to use that 2.6, and I am aware of the same, as the superintendent, that the same dispute over the communities that weren't receiving money, including a number of poor cities that weren't receiving any money. So there was a talk about trying to reallocate that money in some way. And as of yet, I haven't heard. I know that there were some discussions with the legislature over how to use that money, but I haven't heard anything definitive on that.
Madam Superintendent, you want to respond?
Right, yes, I would. Just for point of clarification for the committee, that 2.6 million that we are referencing is calculated in the $9.5 million that we presently think we're facing. So if in fact that 2.5 or 6 million is reduced in to any degree, that will have a significant impact, and we will be going well over 10 million in cuts.
Madam Superintendent, correct me if I'm wrong, that stimulus money that we're going to receive from the federal government can only be used for specific operating expenses and not used for operational expenses throughout the school. Is that so?
That's correct, Mayor. However, we have not seen exactly what the guidelines will be for the stimulus money that's coming from the governor. There are very strict guidelines with regards to the IDEA and the Title I monies that we are receiving from the federal government. Half of it can be spent on to save positions, and half of it is to be spent on professional development and building capacity within the district. But I have not seen, and nor do I think, from what I understand the manager to say, that he hasn't seen if in fact that's a real number yet, or the guidelines on how we can spend it. But we really need to hope it can be spent on saving positions.
Anyone else on the committee would like to pose a question to the manager or Tom Moses?
Sorry, Your Honor, I just would like to, for my own clarification, assuming we are level funded with Chapter 70, the state, and I know there's nothing in writing yet to say that, and a lot of my information is through the Mass Association of School Committees, so I don't have anything in paper, in writing, but assuming we are level funded with Chapter 70, are you then saying the local contribution from the city would be $3 million less?
I think it's probably, if it's just the Chapter 70, then the local share would be decreased by the $3 million. Right.
Would be whatever the Chapter
Whatever that
70
number is. If the state comes forward with additional Chapter
The
70
full
money,
level funding.
level funding or any
119
portion thereof, or they come above,
Well, let's not.
okay?
Still-
Then that would go to the schools.
Okay.
Chapter
Thank you.
70 would go to the schools.
The whole Chapter 70 amount would go to the schools.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. To the city manager. So are these the numbers you're working off of, or are these, do we have a number from you yet?
That number that you're looking at right there is the cherry sheet.
Yeah.
And that is, that comes directly from the state. So
That's
that's
the latest-
just the state.
Right off the press, believe me.
But we don't actually have a budget from the city yet, right? You're still working to present.
I haven't formalized the city budget yet, but I did provide you with a number to use, and that's the last year's budget minus $5 million.
And it could
Of
be
which a
different.
portion of that is the decrease in Chapter 70. The 2.4 million, I think, Chapter 70.
Okay. But nothing's set in stone yet. I mean, we know pretty close.
The thing about this year is nothing is
Okay.
set in, I don't know when anything will be set in stone.
Okay,
And I must comment that
thank you.
many communities, the city of Worcester, they're all doing a preliminary budget.
Right.
And they're probably going to have to go back
Right.
and make changes to that budget. And Manager Lynch and Tom Moses, the city council, we don't know exactly what's cast in stone, John. We don't have that figure. Until we get that, we're trying to formulate some semblance of addressing a budget. And Madam Superintendent, you wanted to comment?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You all set? Thank you, Manager Lynch. Thank you, Mr. Moses. Thank you. We will now pick up where we left off Saturday, and what's the wish of the body? Ms. Fattacani.
Your Honor, people have signed up for public participation,
Yes.
so I'm going to ask my colleagues and your indulgence that we listen to people come to the microphone and address the committee?
Most definitely.
Thank you.
Request from Ms. Fattacani to allow the public to come forward to the podium, seconded by Mr. Leahy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's approved, and this is what democracy is all about, and we thank you for being here, and we thank you for your interest in this very, very important dilemma. So anyone who comes to the podium, please give us your name and address, and the podium is yours. 5 minutes or less, okay?
Good evening. My name is Genevieve Parasol. I reside at 20 Bryan Road, Lowell, Massachusetts, and I am a registered voter. Honorable Mayor and respected school committee members, I would like to address the clerical unit budget cuts. First, let me start by telling you that after reviewing the budget meeting on Saturday, May 30th, over and over again, because I DVR'd it, it was quite apparent that all were quick to eliminate the clerical positions without any delay or discussions on these positions, and it was a unanimous vote. Over the past years, our unit has been substantially cut to the number of 21.5 positions through attrition and reorganization. Highest paid clerical positions listed in our contract have not been filled by clerks, but by adding managerial positions. Further reductions mentioned of cutting an additional 9 clerical positions during this past Saturday budget hearing would reduce the central clerical staff to 19, and that would be truly affecting the customer service to the Lowell public school community. Although many of the clerical positions that are assigned to an administrator does work for multi-department heads. Over the years, duties have been added to all clerical positions, and we have accepted this gracefully. Expanding the workload could cripple the system that is already overtaxed. On behalf of our clerical staff, please reconsider your decisions on making any of these cuts, because our unit has already been through several reorganizations and eliminations over the past several months. Furthermore, once we are given what the city is looking for, which we found out now, we will be meeting with our negotiating team, and we look forward to working out accordingly with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Genevieve. Anita Downs?
Hi, I'm Anita Downs. I live at 48 West Forest Street. I've had children enrolled in the Lowell Public Schools for close to 18 years now. Actually had a college graduate this year, which is amazing that we've been in that long. I've been involved in citywide parent councils, school site councils, even been an employee of the Lowell Public Schools. We chose to stay in Lowell and send our children to the Lowell Public Schools because we felt like their success was going to come from the diversity and creativity that the school system provided. The schools have changed a lot in the time that we've been involved. Budget constraints have whittled away at this structure, and it's not the same structure that we made our decision upon, but we still think it's a good school system. My kids learn science and a second language in kindergarten, and I think now we're just happy that music and art is still offered, and we understand the constraints. At the high school, my older children were able to take classes at UMass Lowell, and now we're thrilled that you still have AP offerings. Cutting staff and anything that's going to affect the accreditation is going to affect the way the city looks. We know that you have tough decisions to make, and you're going to have to continue to make them in these challenging times. And we know you're going to keep the best interests of our children. But the students and all students' success is the ultimate product of the hard work we've all put in. It's our duty not just a gift that we give education to our children. And we realize we are well into the process. But we're asking you to please take your time in making these decisions. They're important, and I know that you know that. Make sure you have all the facts and numbers. Listen and talk. Keep your ears out for changes, and make your lists, check them twice, and please keep communication open with the city. Soon my children will have graduated from Lowell Public Schools, and my time as a Lowell Public School parent will be gone. But as a resident, I feel that this system is part of the future of our city. It's how people perceive a city and why they move to our city. Keep our schools safe and successful, and that's the key to our city's success. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Samaras?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the members of the school committee. I don't envy your positions today for any of us, but especially for you. But a city is measured by its school system, and a school system is really measured by the high school. Because of its size, logic would dictate that much of the cuts would come from the high school, where 25% of the system. But I just want you to get an understanding where I'm coming from. In 1991, Lowell High School took massive cuts. In fact, it was the biggest in the state. And it took us over 15 years to start rebuilding the high school. And if it wasn't for ed reform money, we couldn't have done that. And as a result of that, though, in 1999, I believe you know that U.S. News will Report nominated us as an outstanding urban high school. In 2008, Boston Magazine gave us the ranking of an outstanding high school, not just urban, for being fiscally responsible. And that's important, that we were a school that was in control of its spending. As a result, today we have a foundation. Our dropout rate at the 9th grade is the best in urban centers. Our MCAS test, 50% of our students score proficient or advanced, and there's only 3 urban high school systems in the state that are doing that. Our attendance rate is up there. We have the best rate for urban high school students going to 4-year colleges. We have an outstanding rate for students going on to college, but 4-year rate is unbelievable. Now, 5 years ago, we received our accreditation, a 10-year accreditation. And we didn't have all of everything in place, but it was because of our direction. Even though we didn't have everything, the Lowell School Committee showed that they were supporting the high school. The business community showed that, the parents, and even the news media, or all the media showed that they were supporting school. At that time, when we were told that we were understaffed, we had 11 department heads. But since that time, we eliminated the department head for business. Then the following year, we eliminated the ELL position and gave that to our foreign language director. The business department, we gave that to our art director. And now we're closing off on our family consumer science because of her retirement. And the year before we received our accreditation, we eliminated our phys ed and health director. At the subcommittee, I asked that the 2 positions of department heads be reinstated for that reason, to help us maintain our accreditation. We also looked at the possibility of ratio cuts for teachers. And I can understand where the ratio is so different. It's high at the elementary. It's higher than what you want. It's higher than what anybody wants. There's no question about that. Higher at the middle schools, and there's an expectation to be higher at the high school. But you cannot use the ratio that you would use at an elementary school as you would at the high school because of scheduling purposes. If we take the 1 to 20 ratio, that is going to have us cut the 11 teachers that are retiring, plus approximately 7 to 8 teachers due to the new attendance policy. I believe the school committee passed the attendance policy. So that's about 17 to 18 teachers that we'll cut now. If we go to the ratio of 1 to 21, we will lose 25.7 teachers. Now that's 10% of our teaching staff. So in looking at the cuts, I'm just simply saying last year we took an $800,000 hit. And every year prior to that, we started losing teachers. If we wanted a program, as we expanded the Malloy School, we cut teachers at the high school because of diminishing enrollment, things like that, to expand the alternative schools. And this was something the school committee wanted. This is something that we all wanted, and it's proven to be worthwhile. So we've been doing okay, but at this point, I'm fearful of where we're going. When I submitted the budget, and when I talked about the budget that I submitted about the two department heads, I had given that budget to the superintendent in tiers, T-I-E-R-S as opposed to T-E-A-R-S, but I think they both counted, okay? And But that was like a last-ditch effort. And the thing is, as I hear the mayor, I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Mayor. I clearly do. But with the cuts, as it was stated, we were cutting $2,342,988. If we reinforce or reinstate the two department heads, when our budget now is, we're losing $2,250,000 from the budget. If we go to the 21-to-1 ratio, we'd be losing approximately, you would be gaining, we'd lose $400,000 more of staffing at the high school approximately. So our budget, the budget that Lowell High School would be asked to submit to you in this hard times is $2,650,000. We really can't go beyond that. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but this is going to create hardships. And we talked about, some of the parents came in and they talked about, classes. So you'll understand when we talk about the ratio of, 1 to 21, why can't we just simply balance it? We can't have, we'll say, 100 students, 5 teachers, 20 to a class. Even this year, with the number of staffs that we have, if you include physical education in our program, the semester 1, we had 52 classes of 30 or more. Semester 2, this semester, we had 93 classes of 30 or more. Take out the physical education, which by nature has been a larger group. Semester 1, we had 34 students, 34 classes over 30, and semester 2, 51 classes over 30. That's with our lower ratio. I mean, so that talks to you about the programs. So as we cut into the teachers, we start cutting into our programs that have made this high school what it is. And I wish I had the magic bullet. I wish I could say, somebody out there gave me a lottery ticket and here it is to the Lowell School Committee and it answers all our prayers. But the thing is, I know you'll work hard at this, but I just wanted to give you, from my perspective, the high school has bled as much as it can. I would hope that you would consider that. Thank you.
Mr. Samaras?
Yes.
I'd like to present one question to you.
Sure.
I know for years we always indicated there were 4,000 students who attend Lowell High School. Is that so?
Correct.
How many students attend Lowell High School right now?
Right, for next year's registration, I believe we're at 3,332.
3,300. So that means there's a decline of 700 students.
But we've been cutting staff since that number 4,000 over the years.
Thank you.
Each year, okay?
Thank you. I wouldn't like to get into a question-answer period with the speakers. After we go through all the speakers, if you'd like to ask one particular person to come forward, I think that's probably the way to go. Thank you, Mr. Samaras.
Thank you.
Rowisha Mendes? I hope I pronounced your first name okay.
No, it's Haisa, sir. Hi, my name is Haisa Menezes. I'm currently a junior at Lowell High School, and I'm speaking on behalf of the video production and YouTube television for Channel 22. And I'm going to keep this very brief. I just wanted to say how much it means to me. And I've been doing so much with video production lately, and I learned so much about college. They teach us everything. Not only do they give me an opportunity to learn, but they give me an opportunity to teach Lowell High School as well. And we teach the students about college through the television programming. And I just wanted to say that it would be a real loss to me if the program went away, because I could be anywhere right now after school instead of going to school and being in school and doing things educational. I could be out in the streets. I could be out doing things that aren't, not appropriate. So I just wanted to say, please really think about this, because you're going to be affecting me personally, and you're going to be affecting the students up there who are watching me right now, and everybody at YouTube television, including the teachers and the students. So please, I'm asking you to really think about this.
I applaud you as a student at Lowell High School for being here, coming to that podium to protect what you believe in. I applaud you.
Thank you. And I also... And I also want to throw out there that as part of video production, we put on together around 300-something plus community service hours just with the TV production, so thank you.
Thank you. George Correa. Did I pronounce that okay? Correa?
Good afternoon. My name's George Correa, and I'm speaking on behalf for the video production crew for Lowell High. If you take the video production crew away from us and the other students, it's like taking a family away from the students. If you kind of think about it, you shouldn't take something that every student cherishes to go every day to school. Like, they put their mind, they set everything towards this thing after school. Because like my fellow classmate Haisa said, if you take it away, I have nowhere else to go. After school, this helped me learn more things, helped me for college, and I'm out there trying to help everybody else learn about the video production crew. When I started off in the Lowell High School, I didn't know what the video production crew, I thought it was just for other people, until they showed me how to use camera, how to use the truck, and now I'm trying to show everybody else that video production crew is not just an academy, it's a family. We're all together. They're not teachers to us, they're like our parents. They show us, they lift us up from when we're down, when we have like our awkward moments or whatever. They help us. They don't leave us there like other teachers. They'll probably be like, yeah, this and this. They lift us up, and they're parents to us, and I respect them as a teacher and parents. So that's all I have to say.
George, thank you.
You're welcome.
Elaine Donnelly?
Hi, my name is Elaine Donnelly, and I work on a partnership with UMass Lowell and Lowell High School, and thank you for this opportunity. I just have 3 key points that I hope that you consider while you're making these hard decisions. One is about 21st century skills, the second is about partnering with UMass Lowell and College Info, and the third is about student impact. The first is 21st century skills, 21st century success, which Lowell Public Schools has as part of their mission, which is undermined without media literacy. We already know that these skills are important for all students, but they're particularly important for first generation of college and low-income students. In 2000, a school committee meeting was discussing whether or not all teachers should have email 9 years ago, and there was some concern that maybe it wasn't necessary or that would be a distraction. And if we reflect now on how fundamental it is to communication, to safety, to scheduling, that's what technology is. So think about the role that technology increasingly plays in student lives. And it's skills for both jobs and college. Also the tie to college, and UMass Lowell in particular. Partnering, through this work, I partner heavily with the Cregan TV studio and guidance counselors at the College and Career Center to share college information. And this is how a 16-year-old gets information. So it's about media literacy. It's also about getting the information that isn't readily available necessarily, or through a means that is readily acceptable to students. The investment has already been made. Now the collaboratives don't take that much more. The heavy lifting has been done. And finally, student impact. Over the past 2 years, about 30 or 40 students have been involved in this programming, like YouTube TV. Reaches all the students in the high school through homeroom, through advisory classrooms, plus throughout the city. It's a district-wide initiative. And so it impacts the entire district and the entire city. So I just want to take in consideration that you might be losing $1 by saving a nickel. Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen Stoholt?
Good evening. My name is Eileen Scofield. I live at 675 Andover Street in Lowell. I'm a district support specialist for Lowell Public Schools, and I work with English language learners. I'm here tonight to support the activities of the TV studio with Lowell's teachers and students. Currently, we're working with the studio and Lowell classroom teachers on a program that will make videos available of Lowell's teachers planning and teaching lessons that feature best practices for all students with a focus on our English language learners and special needs students. We're setting up a secure website that will make these videos available so that teachers can access the videos from their classrooms in their homes while they're planning their lessons. They can also be used for professional development during common planning time, faculty meetings, and workshops. We're also planning to provide links to the ELA standards and the Massachusetts English Language Proficiency Benchmarks and Outcomes for English Language Learners, known as the ELBO. The ELBO is sort of correlated with the ELA standards, so that, for example, if a teacher is, say, a 10th grade teacher at Lowell High School is planning to do a writing lesson for her students, and in her classroom there's 4 or 5 English language learners at a level 3 proficiency level, intermediate students, she can go to that document and look at ways to differentiate that lesson for those students. So it's really a support for teachers. They can also, when they click on these links, they can also see video clips of the Lowell teachers demonstrating these strategies, so that when we actually have these videos of the teachers, it's not just one video that you would sit down and listen and look at or observe. They're broken up into pieces and sections so that they want to see the planning time. What is that process? What is the conversations that happened? What are the questions that are asked during that session? You can just look at that piece. If you want to look at certain strategies geared towards a certain kind of lesson, you can click on that. So the actual videos will be, teachers will be able to view them in many different ways for their own professional development. Having said all this, the program is cost-effective for PD, and it's in keeping with the superintendent's goal for grade-level teams as the hub for improved teaching and learning. That results in teacher empowerment and student achievement. The program is tailored for our Lowell teachers and our kids. And I guess to end it, I would like to say that we have to remember that the TV studio not only supports Lowell High School students when it's there, but it supports students and teachers throughout the whole district. It's really a district-wide initiative, not just a high school initiative. So saying that, I hope you'll reconsider. I think what we're doing is quite exciting, using technology in this way and bringing professional development to teachers through a website, and the savings on professional development for teachers, and for teachers to observe each other teaching. So with that, I say, please think about this, and I thank you.
Thank you. Victoria Van.
Hello, school committee, Mr. Mayor. I'm Victoria Van, and I've gone through the Lowell public school system all my life, from the Bailey to the Daily, and now I'm a senior at Lowell High School. We'll graduate in a couple of days. I'm here on behalf of the television studio, and that it was crucial for my success and happiness at Lowell High School, especially my senior year. And the positions of Mr. Jack Pinard and Mr. Brian Wilkins are very important, I think, for the student body, because they are there for the students, and especially for me, ever since I popped my head in the studio and said, "Can I join?" And they have been there for me, and they have taught me so much. And I think people need this studio for learning and for the education of the Lowell School Committee and for the people out in the community as well. Because believe it or not, people do watch Channel 22. Even Mr. Michael Creasy, the Lowell National Superintendent, even complimented us on some of the segments that we have done. And people, they do learn something. They talk about colleges and segments about UMass Lowell and Lowell High School. And all these activities are very important for students. And I'm a senior now. I'm leaving Lowell High School, but I feel for my fellow classmates who need the studio to keep things going after school and for the community. So please, I know this must be hard, but there must be another way. But the Lowell community and Lowell High School, they need the studio. Thank you.
Victoria, you want to pursue a career in CNN, don't you?
Yes, yes, that's right. Thank you.
Timothy Shugru.
Hello, my name is Tim Shagru. I'm a student at Lowell High. I'm also here on behalf of the TV studio. And I guess I really just wanted to talk about how it's an important asset, not only in that it's a way to get information out, and they broadcast all kinds of school events, and like anybody who watches Channel 22 will know what they show, but it's also an asset to students, and I know for me it was a great resume builder because I didn't do that many school activities, so the studio, it really gives you a lot of opportunities to do things that'll look good when you're trying to get into college. And I actually brought a copy of my own resume. Just through the studio, I got a job with the Lowell Student Police Academy as a filmer there. so I could put that on my resume. I could put 2 years of internship just from being in the studio and just all the work I did around there. That we were able to put that down as an internship. All the filming that we did for just school events and sports events and the folk festival, there was 2 days of that. That all went down as community service. I did projects with teachers. Miss Manasian, we did a project that involved the whole class. It was it actually won a cultural award. It was called Project Immigration Nation. And for Mr. Callahan, I also made a commercial that was it was for Lowell Canal Waters Cleaners, it was called, and it was just basically advertising for them and helping them recruit. So I just wanted to point out that the studio is a really important asset both for students and for getting information out to people. So
Thank you. Connor Crosby. I hope I got that first name okay. Here we go. Is it Connor?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Connor Crosby. I'm a freshman at Lowell High School, and I really love the TV studio. It's like a second home to me because I'm just so passionate about filmmaking and being in TV production, and I've liked that all my life. And if you were to cut it, think about all the things that like they wouldn't be able to film sporting events, concerts, bunch of things like even people that don't like TV production or filmmaking, the TV studio helps them so that way they can see news and events that happen around Lowell High School, and not just Lowell High School, but Lowell Public Schools. I know that the TV studios helped middle schools because last year I was at the Daily Middle School, and they brought in equipment that helped us make a program, an after-school program, and we were able to have experience like people in Hollywood have. And we made a movie, and they were able to show that on Channel 22. So if you were to cut that, all of that would be lost, and then people in the future that might really like it like me won't be able to experience all the fun in the TV studio.
Thank you. Thank you. Ann Brady. Ann Brady.
Good evening, Ann Brady, Rogers School. I actually was here Saturday, but I couldn't. I was on the list, but I needed to leave. But there was a couple thoughts I wanted to share before it was all said and done. And I know the closing of the Rogers is not a distant memory quite yet, but Saturday kind of reminded me of the old parental adage when it comes to punishment, when parents say, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. When the school committee talked about how hard it was for all of you to make these cuts. However, I have to say, out of great loyalty and deep respect for my principal, Tim McGillicuddy, I hope that at some time in the very near future, he is told, just as publicly as the caution he received, that a thank you is due him for his dedication and his passion to our children. I hope, too, that in earnest, an apology is extended for him for what has been called a necessary step for the greater good. He deserves that. Difficult questions and conversations cause discomfort and sometimes anger, but it's a sad day when those feelings that arise around questions and comments trigger censorship. This is not in the spirit of the process. In closing, I also need to say, then there was a lively exchange between Your Honor and Mr. Georges around whether or not the constituency of the union had brought any ideas forward. I wanted to make it publicly known that a few staff at the Rogers had sat down, and we're not old hats at this, but we had put together 2 proposals, alternative proposals, which then were forwarded, I believe, to every school committee member. I hope to you, Your Honor, and I'm assuming to Superintendent Scott. So there were ideas. There was not much discussion, and I must say no response to those. And perhaps they were didn't hit the big numbers, but they were in the spirit of trying to save our school. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Karen Orr. Karen Orr?
I thought it was at the bottom of the list. And I want to go to Lowell High School and be on that film committee. I think that looks really cool. I'm Karen Orr. I live at 58 Epping Street in Lowell. And I'm the mother of a second grader at Washington School, and I'm a Stand for Children member. I think that the numbers have grown since I sat down. I think there are 20 or 25 of us here tonight. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to address Madam Superintendent, the school committee, and the larger Lowell community this evening. So I know I don't have to reiterate how dire our circumstances are, citywide, statewide, and nationally. And I know that across the country, budgets are being studied from every angle and then cut so deeply that services that were once provided are now barely recognizable. On a more personal level, if somebody hasn't already been laid off, they're probably living with daily anxiety that it's going to be happening soon. And I can't overstate the stress experienced by those of you in these positions to make cuts and how difficult the decisions must be for you. There are no good choices, and I know that each of you is striving to make thoughtful decisions that are based on what's best for the children in Lowell. And I actually genuinely appreciate the debates that I've heard here, and I do believe that that's the process and the best means to arrive at the best solution for right now. So the only way to mitigate the situation is to be thoughtful and strategic in your decision-making process. Focus on the opportunities to deliver services in the most cost-effective ways, hold your ground where you must, and take advantage of opportunities that are currently on the table. So I ask for the school committee and the public to join us at the City Council's public hearing in a few weeks and ask them to take 2 measures that can help manage the cuts that are required. The first is ask the City Council to support local revenue options, including the hotel and meals tax. Lowell could generate over $2 million from increasing the meals tax by 2% that was allowed by the Senate. A 1% increase, so a nickel on a $50 tab, would give Lowell over $1 million that we don't currently have in the budget. The hotel-motel tax, if increased by 2%, would yield $146,000. A 1% would give us $75,000. The second is to ask the City Council to support an increase in the city's contribution to the school budget. We all know that education is the best investment in our economy, so let's go to the City Council and tell them. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Susan Smith.
Good evening. My name is Susan Smith. I'm a district support specialist in the Office of Student Support Services, and I'm also the president of LSAA, Lowell School Administrators Association. I live at 263 Gibson Street here in Lowell. I'm here as LSAA president representing a membership of 207 caring, credentialed, and hardworking professionals. I appreciate the chance to address you, and I will be brief this evening in order to afford you the time to deal with the difficult situation that you have at hand. We know the situation is dire, and I know I speak for all my members in saying that we appreciate the hard work you're putting into this, and we know that all the decisions you make affect the students and the families and the community at large. In deliberations so far, the term administrators has been used, and certainly is part of the name of our organization. But we'd like you to think this evening and from here forward of us as partners in education with the teachers, paraprofessionals, all the school staff, and with you as our leaders in the community. Please focus on the dedication that all of these professionals have demonstrated and the critical and distinct role that each plays in the lives of our 13,788 students and their families. You, as the decision-making board of the school district, have entrusted these expert individuals with the responsibility of guiding the educational, social, and emotional growth and development of each and every child in our care. These individuals provide service and counsel to students, schools, teachers, and families based on individual needs and in response to school culture issues. Data shows that we are making progress in the quest to have all students on the road to success, but not without hard work of all. There is no doubt that we still have much to do. We are a school district on the move, constantly responding to data, assessments, and state and federal directives. Our district and school-based administrators do the following. They gather and assess data in various formats. They respond to that data of our district as well as our 28 school sites. They take part in decisions on how best to deliver academic initiatives based on the knowledge we have of each site's student and group profiles. Our administrators provide support for all students beyond the academic realm: social, emotional, economic, health, all of which we know, when compromised, affect classroom performance and progress. And most of all, they serve, along with the rest of school staff, from the whole gamut of everybody that's employed in the Lowell Public Schools, they serve as that caring adult that makes a difference for many students. The need for our diverse positions in our organization cannot be denied in our common quest to serve those 13,788 students. Please consider all your options in your work with this proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Ann Sequela.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, School Committee. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Leanne Squelia. I reside at 265 Dutton Street in Lowell. I'm a registered voter, a taxpayer, a guidance counselor at the high school, and a Stand for Children member. As Karen already said, I'm joined here tonight by probably 20 supporters and members of Stand for Children who care deeply about the children of Lowell. We know that you're facing difficult choices tonight, and Stand for Children wants you to know that we support your efforts to protect the classroom integrity, or the integrity of the classroom for students. We know that you are facing difficult choices about how to direct very limited resources, and we know that cuts need to be made in many areas. Stand for Children is also asking you tonight to make informed choices that will have the least impact on comprehensive student support services for children. These kinds of resources are critical for urban students and a natural extension of the classroom. Though the impact of these services is difficult to measure by traditional methods, without them, a school cannot provide the kind of all-inclusive education for its community that our taxes should allow us to provide. We urge you to look at cost-effective ways to keep this subtle yet critical web of support in place for students and families. As elected officials, you are the protectors of education in this city. Stand for Children will support every effort you can make in advocating on behalf of students and families for any and all funding Lowell Public Schools could and should receive from our local government. Thank you.
Thank you. Shannon Gallagher. Shannon Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon Hardy Gallagher, and I'm the president, speaking as the president of the Friends of Lowell High, but also as a taxpayer, resident, and parent of children or a child in the school system. And there are a few of us here in the audience tonight, although we did have a function at the high school recognizing the student athletes, all of the students that participated in the spring sports event. So many of our members are over there with their children. Regardless, I have two sons, and I often talk about the school system as a tale of two sons because my boys are 4 years apart. One just graduated from UMass Amherst, and one is graduating Wednesday night from Lowell High School and going off to UMass Amherst to study engineering. And so I've seen over the course of their education things changing and not necessarily for the better. Every year it seems like something else is being cut back, cut back, cut back. And the difference in my children's middle school education, most specifically, we lost writing instruction as a core subject. For my younger son, we also changed over the math curriculum and watered down the instruction so that the number of children qualifying to take a higher level math in 9th grade, like Algebra 2, has come down. So the effect of that is that the teachers at the high school end up having to work harder because the English teachers now have to teach more about writing than they would have had otherwise. And of course, the math teachers now are struggling to try to give, especially students with high math competence, the skills that they need to be ready for college level instruction when they get to that point. So we need to really be thoughtful about these cuts that we're making. I know times are tough, and I know this is a tough job for you, and I wish I could give you the magic answer as well to make this easier for you. But unfortunately, I'm going to challenge you to really think strategically, really think surgically at the cuts you're making. Try not to be categorical and just slashing entire categories of things without being thoughtful about the ripple effect that will have, because in fact it will ripple for a few years. Even if things were to turn around next year, the students' education this upcoming year is going to be affected, and that will, of course, affect their future years of education. So please continue to be thoughtful about that. Now, Mr. Samaras mentioned class sizes, and I know you have the chart showing changes in class size, and Mr. Samaras referenced the number of classes that we have over 30 students currently. And my student who's a senior now, his current English class on his English 4 has 31 students in it. And I think at the beginning of the year it started with probably 35 to 40 students in it. Now, when he was a freshman, he also had over 30 students in his English class. And so even though the mean average shows that there's 18.6, remember the mean is just dead center. We've got higher class sizes and lower class sizes, and we need to be very careful. I mean, to be an English teacher in a class of 30 students, and especially where they didn't get that strong baseline in 8th grade and 7th grade, you know, it's really tough work for those English teachers. So please keep that in mind as you're looking at just blank numbers on a page on class sizes. One of the things that parents have said over and over to me is we need to protect our good teachers. We want strong teachers in the classroom. And we know that with the birth rates peaking in 1990 to 1902, that those students are now graduating from high school. So yes, as was pointed out by the mayor, the overall enrollment at the high school has come down. But nevertheless, we still want to keep our strong teachers in place. And one of the things that preserves the strong teachers is having good supervision of our teachers, good department heads, our subject matter experts, our department heads, to work with the teachers on new instruction ideas, and ensuring that the content that they're teaching is good content, that the teachers have the skills, the knowledge themselves to make sure our children are learning the right things. So, and it was pointed out, we've already lost some department heads over the past few years, and you know, I just don't see how we can cut back any further when those department heads are already supervising over 30 teachers each. We want to make sure that they're still working with our teachers to ensure quality in the classroom. One bright spot I can point to, though, over the past few years that I've seen at the high school level is the improvement in the guidance function. I don't know how many people remember, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, but there was a student who was, I don't know whether he was from a family who immigrated to our country, or he was definitely first generation to go to college. And he made it into BC, not an easy school to get into. But he didn't have the guidance or the support to tell him to fill out financial aid forms. So that student ended up not being able to go to Boston College because of some kind of falling through the cracks, because we didn't have a guidance function strong enough to support that student. And we know that we have plenty of parents that know how to guide their child through the college process, but we certainly have plenty of students at the high school that do not have that support. So guidance has gotten better over the past few years, and we need to continue that. And I must say, from personal experience, I've been dealing with the college and career counselors. We've had a change in personnel there over the past 5 years as well, and the current team that's in place there has done a spectacular job in communicating with parents and making sure students understand what they need to do in order to get ready for college and to get into college. So I'd like you to please make sure our guidance function stays intact with the right people there doing that. Let's see. Only other thing that I want to point out, and this I know is not part of your particular budget process, but the building facility itself also needs to be budgeted for, and I look at the school committee to help advocate to the city for that. I would challenge anybody to walk up a staircase inside Lowell High and find a staircase that does not have 1 or 2 broken treads in it. And that, to me, is a safety hazard, especially if we had to evacuate any one of those buildings quickly. You know, students could easily trip on those treads that are missing or broken. And in fact, there's areas where the whole linoleum that is in the hallways has curled and peeled, and again, it's a huge tripping hazard. We managed to convince the city to rip up some of that linoleum last fall, but now we have a bare cement floor. The underfloor is still there waiting for some kind of covering to go over it. So we need to make sure that our buildings are well taken care of as well. We know that last winter we had some real concerns about whether we'd have enough heat during those cold snaps because the HVAC units weren't well maintained. So whatever can be done to remind the city of that obligation is important as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Celeste Falcone. Celeste Falcone.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm also here on behalf of the television production. The high school students spoke very eloquently. I just have a few simple things to say. I'm the librarian at the Dr. An Wang Middle School, and I was interested in starting a video program this year for the middle schoolers. As a real novice, I could never have done it without the help of the people over at the high school. They helped, mentored me and mentored the students, spent a lot of time with the students, giving them a very meaningful experience. The students many of the 8th graders that took part in this are really looking forward to going over to the high school and taking part in this. For some of them, that is what they're looking forward to. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that this program isn't just impacting the high school, that that the resources of the television production studio are being used throughout the city at all levels, and that it would be a huge loss to one piece that's looking towards the future that really captures the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Georges, United Teachers of Lowell, President.
Paul Georges, United Teachers of Lowell. I know all of you, so hello. We spoke here a few days ago on Saturday, and since Saturday there seems to be a bunch of things that have changed. One was, I've got Sunday's paper where the city manager indicates that we're $18 million in the hole. I just find out a few minutes ago that perhaps it's $16 million in the hole.
16.5.
16.5, but $400,000 of the 9.5 isn't there anymore because of additional money that came in with the circuit breaker money. The point is, things are in flux, in tremendous flux. And I think it's a time when we, all of us, collectively as a community, people who support public education, in particular school committee people who run for elected office, and I think take an oath to uphold and do the best that they can for the kids in the city of Lowell, should stand against any proposal that's basically unfair to the kids in the school department. The fact is, the city contributes 12.5% of our operating budget. Only 12.5% of that budget. But they want to hit us with a 35.5%. They want to afflict upon us 35.5% of the shortfall. That's basically not fair. It's just that simple. They want to cut an appropriation of about 27% of their actual contribution to us. I don't see any other department in this city that's going to suffer a 27% shortfall. Why is it here? Is it because some people see the school department because there's a commitment by the governor, largely by the governor, to make sure that the money comes to the school department, that we're seen as the fattened calf to be butchered? Are we supposed to balance the city side of government? Was there one mentioned by the city manager about any kind of revenue enhancement that might be available to us? Was there any discussion about the fact that we're 5 million below levy capacity? When I mentioned that the other day, people looked at me like I was strange in some way, that the actual public should support its own public schools. I don't think we should diminish the support that we have in the community to bring this case to the city council, to the floor of the city council, to ask the city councilors to intervene based upon fairness. Fairness. We've made a commitment that we would help out. I've made that clear to all of you. But we're not going to do it on an unfair condition. I'm not going to ask people to defer salary increases that we fought like hell to get in order to go pay for the Bon Marché building. Our money's not going to go to the rent. It's going to go to save jobs. But we also ask everyone to have something in the game. Everybody to make their full effort again and again to try to support our school system. Now, when you see the disproportionate numbers, how could we be inflicting 35% of the shortfall comes upon our shoulders? And it may change from day to day. That's why I asked you the other day, and I ask you again, don't make radical or drastic cuts. We knew about $4.5 million of it belonged to us. We knew that, and I asked you to stay there. But at this point, the city manager is not even bringing his recommendation to the city council till next Tuesday. Why the rush? To make it easier so that the city manager can walk in and say, I've got my $9 million in cuts and concessions? I don't think it's in the best interest. I think we need to bring the battle to the city council floor. I think we have to all work together as advocates for public education. We look for your leadership to help do it. Certainly I'll stand there, and in the past you have done it. But I think this rush to judgment is not in the best interest of the school system. I ask you not to make any significant cuts today. I ask you to wait till after Tuesday, after the city council gets the recommendation from the city manager. More time is necessary. Things have changed just in the last few days. I think they have a great potential of changing in the next week. And I think we don't make it any easier on anybody, because these cuts are not just cuts of fat. That's been gone. And flesh is gone. And now we're to the bone. So at this point, again, we'll commit to help if everybody's in the game. But everybody has to be in the game. So I hope that you will take that. Please don't make major cuts tonight. Have the people who are supporters of public education rally and move toward pushing the city to do what's fair for the kids in the city of Lowell. Thank you.
Mr. Conway, did you have a question for Mr. Samaras?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Samaras? Is he here? Mr. Samaras?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask Mr. Samaras if the information that he shared with us in regards to the class size, I wonder if that information could be brought forward to the school committee so we could have a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Okay. No. And also, I wonder if I could just ask you one other question. I think the mayor mentioned about next year 3,300 students?
32.
32 or 3,300 students, and that's the beginning of the year?
Yes.
And wouldn't you say that in the course of the year, the population of the school fluctuates?
We could pick up 150 students.
Because I would think that within that first 4 to 6 weeks, each house would pick up a number of students?
When we were at 4,000, we were picking up 2,500 students. 250. At this point where we are over the 3,000, we pick up from 150 to 225, 250 each year.
So in other words, if you took a look, if you came back here in, let's say, the end of October, the number of the high school perhaps could be 35 or 36?
3450 to 3550.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Superintendent?
Mr. Samaras, while you're still there, just a few point of clarifications, I think, for our audience at home and for people here tonight. I do think it's important just to educate people to the numbers that you quoted. And when you recommend 21 in a class size, we started with, if class sizes right now are just over 18 at the high school, And if it moves to 20, the number that the committee was given in the chart the other night at the subcommittee meeting, that's 17.9. That is where the 10 retirees and the additional 7 from the vote the other night with regards to the attendance policy. So to go from class sizes of 20 to 21 is the difference between 18 and 26 teachers. So that's the difference that already isn't calculated in the numbers that we have before you. So that's around 461,776. I also think that given the fact that we have over 2,346 classes at the high school, and just over 30 of those classes have students over 30 students in the classes. So I do think that we do need to look at the outliers, as discussed the other night at the subcommittee meeting, with regards to whatever number class sizes that the committee sets, that we be cognizant of obviously calculating in the outliers of the lower class sizes that are less than 10, or the gym classes that arguably are in the high 30s and sometimes low 40s. So those outliers would skew any number, but that would be calculated into whatever class size you wanted to do. So if it was 21, 22, whatever that number is. But I also would like to bring it to your attention again, as we discussed the other night. Class sizes in any range between 21 to 25 as in the high school is important for us to look at, and to the extent that we don't look at it this year, FY11 is going to be, as stated many times now, just as difficult. School departments for years have seen very difficult times, but we know that we are receiving a stimulus package in FY11, so that's basically a big indicator to all of us how difficult it will actually be. And we are going to be forced to look at other cuts. We have class sizes of 22 in the elementary. With the closure of the Rogers schools, class sizes now at the middle school are 25. So I just bring these points up. It is complex with regards to Mr. Samara's point around the different specialty areas, and school committee member Faticani also spoke the other night at the subcommittee with regards to the importance of looking at certain class sizes being less than 25. But I think you can consider that outside of across the board as a general average, but if you have a reading class where you need 15 children in it, that should be considered. Or if there's ed class that could handle more than 40. But I just think that as a whole, there are some complex issues around this particular point. But to not look at these issues is going to drive up class sizes in other areas of our system, K-8.
Mr. Leahy?
Sure. Thank you. Just for a point of clarification also, you know, I know the high school is complex, so I don't want to get into some of this, but a few years ago, we made a class size limit at the high school, didn't we? We topped, and then...
No, the issue was to cut down as many classes over 30 as possible. It wasn't a class size limit, but your concern was because of 3 years ago, we were in the hundreds of classes over 30. And that was a concern of the Lowell School Committee. That was...
Right, so what's the number? Do we have a policy number?
We don't have there is no fixed, we do it, when we set the schedule, it's between 24 and 25 to 1. In other words, when we assign classes right off the bat, we look at class size average of 25 to 1.
Okay, I just remember a few years...
Then after that point, we have to take the anomalies, then we have to take the areas that are heavily covered, you know, and make some changes.
I just thought a few years ago, we said we didn't want any class over whatever it was, 30 or 35 or something.
That was the number. In other words, you wanted us to have... We had a report to the school committee where we, after a review, we cut them by, say, 30%, the number of classes over 30% for the next semester. You know, trying to use the guidance counselors to reschedule. But what happens in many cases, I mean, to reschedule it the way you'd want it to have the numbers equal would mean a number of students would not be taking the art classes, foreign language classes, things like that. It affects electives, but it also affects mainstream classes, especially in foreign languages.
I just don't get it sometimes, because I know, you know, the student should have a course core classes that they're following and a certain pathway, if you will, that they're following. So,
But
I just don't understand how the numbers get up and down, and it's been explained to me, but it's just not sinking in.
I think,
But,
John, as a remember, the freshmen have a more fixed curriculum, but once they become juniors and seniors, a junior will say, I mean, he's not doing as well, so he or she is doing repeat classes, they're doing MCAS preparation classes, while another student is doing very well, and they're doing university classes, high honors classes. Then you have the student in the middle who's doing honors, college. So the thing is, there are 30 children in a room, and all 30 have 30 different schedules in that room. You'll find very few rooms where the schedules actually match.
I guess I'm just trying to get at a point where we can,
well,
John, make it better for the students, but also, I don't want to drop 20 students from the high school either, teachers, but, because we want the most, effective teaching we can, but
I think, John,
will that help us save money, I guess?
No, I understand what you're saying, but you heard the students talking about what the TV studio has to offer.
Oh, I know, and
Once
I'm
you
not
start
even
making
talking
the
about
cuts,
that,
those are the programs that have to
Yeah.
go. There's no question about it.
Well, in my mind, I wouldn't want to see the TV studio go. I'd rather see some, whatever you cut, you're going to get yelled at for. But I'd rather see maybe a couple of, guitar classes or something like that. Or, but I'd rather see the core television program there, but just,
John, the guitar people will be mad
I
at
know,
you.
either way
No,
you're
John,
going to get. So.
No, clearly, I know the road. I know the road that you're on. I mean, there's so many different programs that everybody's looking at, and we're a high school that, in better times, has been able to meet the needs of a lot of students, okay,
Right.
and the needs of a lot of parents. And we know that that's coming to an end at this particular point, but it's how it comes to an end. If you go, for example, the 25-1 and cut 50 teachers, you're talking about science, social studies, history.
Well, I don't want
math.
to do that, but what I would ask you is to help us.
Yeah.
I don't want to see the TV studio here. I want to see some other choices. There's got to be other choices.
No, we'll give
that
we
can
can
trim
give you
down
we can
on
give you
and
that
not the
picture.
TV
We can give you
studio.
that picture.
All right,
We're
and that's
working on
what
that
we
now.
need.
That's-
I mean, that's why
Okay.
we're all here tonight.
Can we move on now, because we get a long
okay.
agenda ahead of us, and there's no one else who wants to ask any questions, is there? Mr. Leary?
So I guess, Mr. Samaras, we talked this morning, and I guess, what is the recommendation then to the committee as far as what is your recommendation as far as class size then?
Well,
officially.
I mean, seriously, to have my druthers, I mean, at 20-1, losing 17 teachers, where I want to go. If the budget is going to be such where it's beyond, in other words, my Armageddon or my place where I don't want to go beyond is the 21-1 ratio, because that would mean losing 10% of my staff at this time, which has been on the decline for the past 5 years.
Just a quick question about the chart that was organized, and it's not to Mr. Samaras, it's actually, I guess, to Paul Schleckman, or less, maybe you could answer it. One of the areas that stood out, if you look at the chart, was the English classes. If you start at the 20 student list, or the average 20, it was 7.7 students, which was a dramatic increase over every single discipline that we had. And as it jumps up 21 through 25, it ends up with 18 teachers, which, if you use the 25 student per class as an average, it essentially was 18.5 English teachers, which is half of your staff.
That's right. That's devastating.
And if you compare, yeah, absolutely. I guess if you compared it to the next biggest department was mathematics. If I'm incorrect, please correct me. The chart said 7.7. So, and as you go forward across the chart, maybe Mr. Schleckman might be able to give me a better explanation for it. There just seem to be dramatic increases for English alone, and not other major subjects like math or social studies. So I don't know, Paul, if that's
I believe
something.
it's because of the offerings, isn't that correct? Yes.
You have more students taking English as well.
Many more students
Okay.
taking English and the type of offerings.
So I know, and I realize that because it's a lot. You got to take it 4 years as minimum, et cetera, and there's
correct.
other disciplines within it. But the dramatic jump was, if you start at status quo, it's 1.9, then it leaps immediately right to 7.7, with this class being 20. I mean, it's a dramatic. It's 2-to-1 plus.
That's correct.
That's not an anomaly number. That's an accurate.
No. Based on this chart, yes. In this in the formula that was used.
Okay, so it's not a misprint, and there's some, I mean, basically you're talking, we have dramatically, like 2-to-1 English classes over every single class that we have. More than, 2 plus, 2 plus. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Martin?
Can I ask, Mr. Mayor, I think we all recognize that we have a great many questions, as we're going through this process, and I know that you're concerned about our agenda for this evening. My understanding is that one of the key things that we were going to be talking about this evening was the high school. And to ask you and certainly my colleagues, would it be possible where we have the expertise of Mr. Samaras and Mr. Schlickman, perhaps we could use this time to ask those questions? And maybe that could be the focus of our meeting.
I didn't want to discuss guitar lessons.
I don't blame you. But I don't want us to go down a tangent if we're not all comfortable with answering those questions. And if the staff, I don't want to put anyone in a bad place that we're asking questions that you're not prepared for, but it seems like now would be the time to ask those questions, and perhaps we can get all that information.
Sure.
Okay. So I have a couple questions.
I'd like to have Dr. Jack up here also, because I think
Sure
they're all
thing.
both correct.
You can drag down anyone you'd like, Bill. We can put everyone on the seat. Starting with the questions about the class size, because that's certainly something that has really had a dramatic impact as I was looking at it. My concern is, obviously we're hearing a lot about these classes that have 31, 32 students in them, and I agree that that's not the best number to function at. We're not hearing as much about the classes that have 8 or 9 students in them. It seems to me that, and we all recognize, anyone in education certainly recognizes that there's been a lot of studies on class size, on what's most effective, at what ages it's most effective. There's been a lot of research in this area. And I think consistently, based on my studies when I was going through this, it does show that it's very age dependent. And it has a big impact. When you're looking at your elementary school, that's where your smaller class sizes have the biggest impact. As you move through to the middle school, larger class sizes are more appropriate. And when you get to the high school, it's generally accepted that even larger sizes are expected, because not only because students are older and have greater capacity, but also they're absolutely tracked. It's something we avoid at every other level in our education system. But once you get to the high school, students are very kind of homogeneous to a larger extent with the high school. If you're not, everyone's not going through one English class with a widely differentiated kind of population. You've got English 1, you've got English honors, English college. Purposefully, the high school functions that way, which is one of the reasons it can accommodate larger class sizes. As I look at these, and the superintendent, as you were talking about this just now, my understanding would be that this first 17.9 number at the 20 is already happening. The decisions that have happened to accommodate the recommendations of the high school of changing their attendance policy, that's included in this 17.9. And then the retirements that aren't being that won't be refilled. So that 17.9 is already accomplished.
Correct.
As we look at 21 in the 21-22 area, my concern is, do we have the technological expertise and capacity is that what's holding us back from better scheduling?
No, what is holding us back, we'll say, from smoother scheduling, better scheduling for Mr. Schlickman would be less offerings. In other words, less electives.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about. He can easily do that. But to go back and answer one of the questions, you're absolutely right about the size and what's happened to high school. But when Lowell High School left the standard program, then combined college and standard courses together, the range right there is a concern of mine. So I wouldn't be honest with you if I didn't say at this particular point, honors level courses, parents may not like it, but can take the 30, 35. I have friends in similar systems, or the Westons or the Wellesleys, where there's 35 in a classroom. There's no question about that in an advanced placement course, all right? However, in our college programs, where you have in some cases those students who have reading difficulties and other students who read very well, the range, and of course we have differentiated instruction and those things there. But to go to your basic question, it really is, when we look at this, For example, we offer like Portuguese, we offer Khmer, we offer French, we offer Spanish, we offer Latin. Now we'd have to look at some point where one of the languages may have to be either completely eliminated or find some other sources where we can take the requirement for third and fourth year, either do it over the internet or some special program, or even, well, talking about combined programs with other communities. I mean, really, at this point, I'm desperately looking at for a solution so I can come back to you and say, listen, okay, I understand what you want. You want less offerings, but you also want the offerings. How do we do it?
Thank you. And I don't think anyone wants less offerings. Yeah. Let's be clear. Okay. But I do think we want to better manage our offerings. And I think you had mentioned, at the high school subcommittee, there was situations where you had, maybe 4 students in French 3 and 5 students in French 4. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the possibility of being able to combine those. It seems to me perfectly reasonable. I mean, I don't know if we have a language instructor here.
We do that now.
Okay. So do we have opportunities when we look at these outliers, these very small groups? There may be some that maybe we should eliminate. But I think you need to give us that information.
Wendy can talk about that, but we're folding over the English, in other words, if it's a communication English course and only 10 students are applying for it, other students can take that English course. Wendy can address some of the issues that we have.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just quickly, that's a perfect example of what we're doing now, because over the last week, the department heads and I have been meeting very regularly to try to figure this out carefully so that we can maintain the integrity of the programs but still address the concerns around the numbers. So to give you a couple of specific examples, we have in the past had the opportunity to have, for example, grade 11 Fine Arts Academy English. So using that as an example, that might be a class that gets folded into the regular grade 11 English, so that the students in the Fine Arts Academy, hopefully with Paul's help, they're still together in the class, but there will be non-academy students in that class as well. So that's an example of what we're trying to figure out, how to, again, maintain the integrity and still handle the numbers. Just to address that question a little bit more carefully, what are we doing now? What are we looking at sort of surgically to see if we can do this well? We're looking at, as an example, what we call off-sequence courses, repeater courses. There might be fewer sections of those next year. Now, the reason that there are a lot of them now, and they're small, that's one of the examples, is that a lot of the students that take those courses, they're in MCAS prep classes. They have to be carefully scheduled. We're trying to support those students, but that's a group of students we'll have to be looking very carefully at so that we don't throw away those programs, but there might be fewer. So that's what we're working at right now. We've looked at some electives that are undersubscribed. We'll be eliminating them. Each department head is working on this as we speak.
Could I just add, as we work with the school committee, and based on your directives, we have to then look at what impact will happen. So this way we can give you better information in a short period of time. In other words, each time we have a meeting with you, from my meeting with Sadie, that's what we talked about, based on what I heard from the committee, some of the things that we have to do, so we can inform you, all right, we can do this, but this is what the harm will cause, or these are the problems. Then we go, as the higher up, we start talking harm versus problems. So that's where I'm at.
And I think we all, recognize that. And the high school is a different animal. We all recognize that. And I think as you're doing this and you're coming back to us with some additional information, just so, we can hopefully get what we need to make these decisions, I do think it's going to be critically important that we receive information about exactly how scheduling is going to improve, what we anticipate for, some outliers being eliminated or combined, so that we can really see efficiencies. And I think we really are, if we need to look at this in terms of, we set a hard and fast number, that if you hit 30, if whatever we choose to, the committee would have to discuss that, that's when a class splits. That we can maintain these levels and yet get the average to a reasonable number. In my mind, 18, 19, 20, they're not reasonable numbers for a high school average classroom size. And we need to be able to push that up a little bit more. And if we can find, I mean, I'm looking to the experts for us to find ways to do that, that doesn't impact students. But when we talk about efficiencies, this is one of the key efficiencies we have to find, because we cannot justify paying extra positions that aren't being effectively used.
But I'm just saying, our 25 to 1 is totally different from the daily school's 25 to 1. It's not the same type of schedule.
I
That would be
recognize the difference,
impossible
Bill.
to do.
I'm sorry, Mr. Samaras. I absolutely recognize that. And I'm not pushing to 25. I'm not saying that.
I understand that. But it'll still come up to that.
We need to make some serious movement, and I think that there is there are opportunities in terms of scheduling, in terms of, making some hard decisions about some of these offerings, and in terms of better utilizing staff.
There's no question. I mean, we don't have the luxury. We understand that.
Exactly.
So what we're going to try to do each day is give you the information where school committee people, because ultimately you take the responsibility. Okay, so the thing is, we want to give you the correct information, so.
Exactly, and ultimately you live with it.
It's acceptable. It's acceptable and understood.
Are you all set, Ms. Mann? Ms. Dougherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to add one little piece to that discussion. I think, we're absolutely looking for savings and we're looking for efficiencies. And we recognize the high school is different from the K-8 schools that we're looking at. But I think it's also an equity issue even within the high school. That if you have let's say a junior class, English in the Business Academy that has 9 students, an English class with 9 students, and then you have a junior English honors class that has 32 students, that's a very different workload for those teachers, as well as a different learning experience for the students. And I think we're really, at least for me, I'm looking for cost savings that work for the whole school. And that work for the system.
That won't exist next year.
We won't be able to have more equitable, balanced classes?
Yes, on that, yes.
It won't work?
No, that's what we plan to do.
Okay, so
Yes,
that's the goal. And then whatever number we're comfortable at, I'm thinking more 21 or 22 myself, but I'd have to see how that plays out. But I think the goal should be a more equitable distribution of students. I think you're going to have a more efficient system for the whole school, and cost savings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Samaras.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get into the budget, I'd like to say a few things. How many people in attendance here are employees of the school department? Just raise your hand. Thank you. We are one city. When we go to a football game, we all root for Lowell High School. Whether it's baseball, basketball, hockey, volleyball, we're all together. We all root for that particular team because we are citizens of the city. Lowell, the home of the Industrial Revolution, the home of the Lowell National Historical Park, a city that's very rich in ethnic diversity. Right now, as we speak, Manager Lynch and his administration, they have already met with the Lowell Fire Department, the second highest budget on the city side of government. The Lowell Fire Department has agreed to a wage freeze for 2010. The largest union in the city, 1705, and the least paid, the employees who work with the pick and the shovel, the employees who mow the grass in the parks, the employees who plow the streets, have all agreed to a wage freeze for 2010. Superintendent Chris Augustus Scott and her cabinet, their assistant superintendents, have come forward to a wage freeze. Is that right, Madam Superintendent?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Right. We're all in this dilemma together. As I indicated, we are one city. It's not us against you, the city council against the school committee. We're one city. If the union employees on the city side of government are going to step to the table and offer a wage freeze, then you know what? People in the school department should do the same. In this budget, Madam Superintendent, correct me if I'm wrong, a $3.1 million wage salary increase. Is that so, Madam Superintendent?
Yes, Your Honor, that's step and wage increases. It's
Three-
not COLA.
$3 million.
Right, it's not cost of living, but it is
So-
step and lane.
I want to do what's right. I want to see the children get a quality education. I want to see people working in the school department. But how can I, as the mayor, look a union employee in the eye from the city government, say thank you for that wage freeze, and as one speaker said, the city council has to give the school department more money? It will not work. You're going to have to look into your own hearts and your own conscience. You're here tonight because you're concerned. If you're concerned about education in this city, consider going to the table with some concessions. And it was indicated earlier, we should raise the tax levy by $5 million. And you know what the next step is? An override. You know how fast an override would move in this city? Nowhere. You would have no place to turn to, no place to go. The superintendent indicated fiscal year 2011 is probably going to be worse. We're in this together. New Bedford, Lawrence, Holyoke, Springfield, Worcester. It's not a Lowell problem. The state of Massachusetts is not bringing in any revenues. Cars are not selling. Appliances are not selling. Capital gains are losing. And I doubt whether if we create a budget for July 1st, whether the governor might be saying you might have to alter it in October. You have to look into your own heart and your own conscience. It's a $3.1 million pay increase in this budget. So I got that off my chest. I had to say it. I had to bring it out. If we're really concerned about education in the city, consider that concession. Consider it. Because I'll tell you something. The law states on July 1st, we have to have a balanced budget. And this school committee and this mayor will have to address this budget and prioritize the cuts that we have to make. We don't want to make those cuts, but we don't have a choice. There's $3 million in this budget. If someone has good intentions, go to the superintendent tomorrow and say, this particular union would like to go to the table and make concessions. That's how we can get around this. There's no other way. We have to cut approximately $9 million. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your interest. And I want to thank you for your concerns about the education in the city. Once again, we are one city, and we all have to address this problem and the solution together. Thank you. What is the wish of the body? Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question through you to Mr. Lang. I know we cut monies on Saturday. I believe they equaled around 4.2 million roughly, but I know we didn't factor in the health insurance cost as well. Where are we exactly right now before we begin tonight?
I put a revised budget book with the 3-hole punches on your desk before we started. And last Saturday at the session, we reduced the budget, and I was able to, by the end of the evening, factor in the insurance as well. So we reduced the budget by $4,554,421. So just a little over $4.5 million.
Thank you.
Ms. Doherty.
Your Honor, through you, I also have a question for Mr. Lang. I know that we came up with the shortfall numbers based on being level funded, even though we understood from the beginning that Chapter 70 money might not come in. What I heard from the city manager tonight, I'm just looking for clarification, was that if we were level funded, that 2.4 million that we're missing, that we're not quite sure of, that he was going to give us all that money, that the city local contribution would be looking more like a $3 million cut. So if I do my math correctly, assuming again that the state money comes through, that's what we've heard on the street, we don't have anything in writing, but if the state money comes through to 2.4 million, the circuit breaker has been increased, that was worth 400,000, whatever. We're now looking at trying to come up with a total of 6.6 million in cuts, of which we made 4.5 on Saturday, meaning we still have a shortfall of 2.1. Is that correct?
Yes, according to your math, it is correct. There are two variables, though. We don't know for sure what the federal stimulus money is going to be.
You mean the 4.7 we've been counting on, or the money from the governor to fill in that back hole of Chapter 70?
The filling in of the...
We know the 4.7. We've got that right.
Yeah, there's two
All right,
issues.
sorry, go ahead.
Included in the 4.7 is 2.6 of the stimulus money.
Right.
So that's included in that same amount, so we can't double count it. The 2.6 million was actually the amount of money to get to the original Chapter 70 allocation, which was the level funding
Right.
at 119.
I understand, we need more.
To get to foundation. So by actually going $2 million under, the Senate urged the governor to actually increase from 2.6 to, say, 4.6.
Right.
To fill the entire gap. We just don't know if that's going to happen or not. And even the 2.6 that we built our budget on is dependent on that going to Lowell as opposed to the other communities getting their share. There was that discussion about if it was actually just spread across the board, Lowell's dollar amount would be about $700,000 or $800,000 as opposed to the 2.6. We've built it based on us getting all 2.6.
So none of that federal stimulus is for sure. When are we going to know? When will we know?
I don't think we're going to know personally until the actual compromise budget comes out from the House and the Senate. That's probably going to be the clearer indication of which way we're going to go. But ultimately, the governor's going to weigh in at the end also. So depending on how close the House and the Senate get to a compromise, we could have a better indication at that point, but ultimately may have to wait till the governor actually weighs in.
I wish we had asked the governor while we had him in front of us tonight when we're going to know these numbers.
I don't think he could answer that.
But ballpark, it's going to happen in the next 2 weeks,
It all depends on the Senate and
right?
the House, and I would put my money on the Senate to come up with the actual figure.
But it looks like we're going to know within a few weeks. We have to.
Ms. Doherty, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the superintendent has brought forward, I believe, $7.4 million in cuts. Is that right, Madam Superintendent?
That's correct, John.
Are we going to address those cuts this evening? Madam,
Thank you, Your
Ms.
Honor.
Fattakeni.
We have been presented with a tremendous amount of information from central administration. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Lang, for your efforts. And to the other members of central administration, we have an enormous amount of paperwork in front of us to look at. So I think we need to do a couple of things. I don't know, I'm not prepared to act on what I have on my desk right now because I haven't read it. And I think I need some information from Mr. Samaras, because I think he needs to tell each and every one of us what the teacher reductions mean in terms of class size, so that when we say, oh yes, let's cut X number of teachers, we fully recognize what the ripple effect of the class size is. So here's what I'd like to do, Your Honor. Thursday night we have a meeting. We were supposed to have a budget session.
Yes.
I would like to not have that budget session, but what I would like to do is sit down with the members of the Bon Marché Trust and have them outline a proposal for us about what kind of rental reduction they could possibly offer us, what kind of size reduction in the footprint that the school department has at the Bon Marché building. I think that that is a huge part of what needs to happen. That conversation is a big part of what needs to happen for us in our ongoing budget talks. So in discussing with my colleagues, I would like to have that discussion on Thursday night, delay any budget cuts until the week after, so that we can have that conversation with the people from the Bon Marché.
Are you presenting this as a motion?
Yes, Your Honor.
Seconded by Ms. Martin? No. Who seconded the motion? Second by Ms. Martin. On the motion.
Thank you. Could I also, perhaps, we could use that Thursday evening to get back this information from the high school that we just
Absolutely.
requested? So even if we wanted to look at that as I know we have to structure it as something, perhaps a high school
We could have a
/
little high school
facilities.
subcommittee. Absolutely. It's a great idea.
But so that we can get all that information finally and be able to put this, move forward.
And I'd like to, if you could make a motion, could add to bring in, make a recommendation to bring in the unions as well. I mean, there's more than just salary cuts. There's also talking about, for example, some of the LSAA management stuff we had. We add additional days to the contract, which cost additional monies. Some discussions like that need to take place. I think, Mayor, you were very articulate regarding what the manager's been doing, I guess, for a couple of weeks now, sitting down with each and every union and having long discussions. We've had one good discussion with our unions. I think we need to have another one on Thursday night. I think with your passion you just outlined, Mayor, I think it's very good now to sit down and have some of those discussions. And we can really, with the information that we're going to be receiving, really say, listen, what do you feel is you can contribute? If you can't, here's where we're going to be making cuts, and here's what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Mr. Lang pointed out we're at $4.6 million to reach that $9.4 million number, if that's in fact the number, which again, I'll concede it's a moving target every day. We're $4.9 million away from that. And these cuts are going to be, all the cuts are going to be significant. So we're almost halfway in terms of making that number. Again, I agree with you. I think the Senate number will be more the accurate number, but waiting till Monday or Tuesday next week or Wednesday is not going to change a lot of that dynamic. And having conversations, I think, might be of value, because I know the city manager's already done that, and when you make your decisions on the city side next Tuesday, I think it is.
Well, we'll accept the budget Tuesday.
But you'll start working on it. But I mean, you'll have a lot of that budget union stuff already worked out, whereas we haven't done it.
Long process.
I agree.
Long process.
I agree. Thank you. So I don't know if you can add that to that.
Absolutely, Your Honor. So I would, my motion would include that a special meeting of the school committee on Thursday evening at our school committee building,
We could have it here on TV if you like.
wherever you want to have it, that's fine with us, but well.
I'm sorry, we wouldn't be able to do any conversations with the union here.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Ms. Martin, for reminding me. So we would have it at our office at the Bon Marché. We will be discussing facility, Lowell High School, and we will specifically also be inviting our unions to come and speak with us. The discussion with our unions would be closed-door sessions. I'm sorry to tell the public that it would be closed door because we would be in negotiations with our unions. But clearly, the facility subcommittee, the facility discussion and Lowell High discussion would be open to the public. Right. But our discussions with our unions, Your Honor, would be closed to the public. So I would make that in the form of a motion. I know that I'm sorry, June, it was very long, but I'm sure you're very capable of capturing all my words there.
You got that already.
I know she did. I know. She's just like this. So that would be my wish, Your Honor, my motion.
On the motion?
Okay, do I have a second on that one?
Yes, I'm
Ms. Martin?
Ms. Martin, second the motion.
I'm fine with taking the time to really look at this information more carefully. Hopefully, we'll get some more substantial information from the state. Maybe not, it's only a couple of days. But I would like to say I would prefer to have the public portion of the meeting here, where people, if they are interested, they can watch from at home and then go into executive session in the mayor's reception room, perhaps, at whatever happens first or second. I think that these decisions and the extra information we're going to get is relevant for the community to know. And I know for many people it was difficult to get out here tonight, and I'm obviously welcome them to come out Thursday night, but if they're not able to come out, and I'm sure there are people at home who are watching, by having it in council chambers where we've already reserved the space, I think it affords the public that level of involvement so they can see the process we're going through, see the information we're getting from the high school in particular, where we're looking to make some substantive cuts. And I just think it's important to have that portion of the meeting in the public eye.
So your wish is to have the meeting on the facilities here in the
all the
council
information gathering that can be public should be in the council chambers.
And the executive session would be in the mayor's reception room? Yes. Hopefully, it is not booked.
Or if not, we can go back over to the superintendent's conference room. It's just a 2-minute walk.
Ms. Martin?
Just to make another point, I think that the conversations we're talking about having with our landlords also are contractual conversations. I do not know if we can do those in public.
That's correct.
So it would really only leave the high school portion, as I understand it, that would be a public.
I think all the contractual obligations pertaining to the Bombardier building has been in the paper, so, I mean.
But, Your Honor,
you can't negotiate.
We can't negotiate in public.
In public.
So what's the majority of the board want to do?
I think based upon the fact that we have a contract with our landlord, and that we have contracts with our unions, we're going to need to have those meetings at the school department office. We can start with having the Lowell High School discussion first. It can be open to the public.
But the facility portion of that meeting will be open to the public.
Our contractual discussion, Your Honor, with the landlord would not be open to the public.
So, a motion by Ms. Fattacani, seconded by Ms. Martin, to have a meeting, a special meeting Thursday evening at the central office. One meeting would be an executive session, another meeting would be open to the public, but once we get into the contractual obligations, that would be executive session as well. Roll call.
Mr. Leahy.
No.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Mr. Conway.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
No.
Ms. Fattacante. Yes. 5 yeas, 2 nays, it passes.
Is there anything else to discuss before we recess? Mr. Leary.
Just quickly, though, I mean, we need to set up dates for the following week or for the weekend regarding the budget, because this does, I mean, I have no problem patiently going through it, but we need to line up dates as soon as possible and line up this room so it's on television as well. So I don't know, Mr. Lang or Madam Superintendent.
Is it possible if we stay, we recess our meeting and stay for a few minutes and pull out our calendars and look for those dates? And that way we can give them to Mr. Lang, and
But
he
I have to
can.
check with the mayor's office to make
Well, that's why
sure
we'll
this is
we'll look at our schedules, convey that to Assistant Superintendent Lang, and that we can utilize the mayor's office, and that you can let us know what's available and what's not.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything else before we recess?
Motion to reset.
Before we recess, I really am thankful and want to thank you personally on behalf of the school committee for being here this evening. It's a very important issue, and hopefully together we'll get through this dilemma. Thank you.
Motion to recess.
By Ms. Fattacani, seconded by Ms. Martin.
I don't know why we couldn't have done here and gone to the mayor's reception room.
Because he said he doesn't know if it's available.